Welcome to day 163 of the 300 movie challenge. Today, we watched the highest grossing film of December 2007, which was I Am Legend.
There should be a small correction where it's they watched I Am Legend. Um,
Did you at least find the Shrek scene?
yes, I found the Shrek scene.
Okay.
We should talk
So
about the
I can
Shrek
at least say that but I guess to clarify, I watched the Shrek scene. I know what the movie is about, which is why I knew that it was a bad idea for me to watch it.
Yes.
Otherwise, in the middle of the movie, or at the end of the movie, Valen and Mayan would have been like, "Oh, okay, how was the movie?" And they would hear nothing from me. I probably would have blacked out and fainted at some point.
Yeah. Hence the see no evil sign that I so graciously made for Tara.
Yes, which I'll now put on now. Okay. So,
Let's talk about the Shrek scene first.
yes,
I guess.
that was probably, even though that's the only scene that I saw, this was not the movie I would think that scene would be.
If you guys don't like the genre this movie is, which is basically kind of like a pandemic zombie, not really zombie, but kind of like creature apocalypse, just look up I Am Legend Shrek scene and watch that at least. It's
Yes.
It's pretty great.
Yeah, I was
Comedy.
just like, if someone told me Will Smith acts out or voices over Shrek scenes in one of his movies, which one is it? I Am Legend would have been the last movie I would have guessed that was going to actually happen. But he does it.
Yes, he does. It's yeah, like we said, if you're not into these kinds of movies, just go watch that one scene and your repertoire of Will Smith will be complete.
And with the one thing that I can talk about, did I now pass the speaker to you guys?
Oh god. I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I don't know where to start either. I have, I guess, a kind of interesting final verdict in terms of how I feel about it. That
Okay.
I don't know if I should say that first or
Go
if we
ahead.
should
I don't know where else to
Okay.
start.
There are parts that are kind of strange, to say the least, but overall, I felt like I did feel engaged with Will Smith as a character. I guess the way I kind of like put it in my descriptor thing was it's kind of like Castaway in an apocalypse setting.
Yeah.
Because you have this one guy, he's completely alone, and he tries to make up for everything. Like, he sets up mannequins in a video store so that he can feel like he's part of society. He just has his dog for most of the movie. And he's just trying to live his life and trying to figure out how to fix what basically humanity did by accident. And I guess it's probably the way this movie was kind of set up and how it was framed and how certain scenes were shot and how Will Smith acted in his role, but I could probably say that I did feel a lot of the emotion behind what was going on with him.
Mm-hmm.
And like there were a lot of scenes where it was hard to watch for the fact that it's like this person has sunk so low and he's so isolated and he hasn't had any contact with anyone and everyone is pretty much dead for all he knows. And then just the feeling of hopelessness, and then he loses like the last bit of hope when he loses his dog. It was very painful to watch.
Yeah.
So overall, I I'm starting to cry. Overall, I had a pretty um, good feeling from this movie. Also because we watched the correct ending.
Yeah. So I was unsure, like, when I got it, like, which version it was. Watch the director's cut, because the theatrical cut's ending is...
Notoriously bad.
Well, here's the thing. It's not on its face bad, but it's really generic.
It's not nearly as powerful as the ending of the
Yeah, like if
director's.
you didn't know about the director's cut ending, you would have been like, "Oh, okay, fine," right? But like if you know, like, wait, it was this. Like, literally, why did you change it? And like apparently it's because like test audiences thought it like didn't like it, but like test audiences are fucking stupid. So
That's so dumb because, like, with this ending, we're not gonna really reveal what the ending is because I guess for this purpose we want you to watch the actual ending, but it gives you a lot to think about, especially with the context and the premise of this movie. It makes you kind of reconsider certain things and just reflect on how humans like think and how they go about with like society and how they perceive things. And with the theatrical ending, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, this happened. It's like the hero has his moment, but in this ending, it leaves you with a lot of feelings. And I'm still not over it.
Yeah, I do want to like talk more detail about that and kind of what it all comes into, but again, I'll save that for later as like, you know, spoiler section.
Yeah.
So again, I knew the premise of this movie and I knew the ending, like whole thing about that. Okay, so I knew about that. So
Yeah.
I was coming into this thinking like I already know kind of what's going to happen. So, and I mean, you know, considering what this kind of movie is, like it's, you know, it's, and again, how notorious the ending is, I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not probably not gonna, I'm not probably not gonna hate it, but I'm probably just gonna be like, you know, whatever, right? Because I'm like, well, if I know what's gonna happen, then, you know, I love this movie, like way more than I thought I would, and I would say the first hour is phenomenal.
The first hour it hits you really hard.
And the last like 40 minutes, okay, the 10 minutes of the ending, of course, is like really, really good too. That like 30 minutes between that, it's still good. The only thing I have is that one of the most powerful things of that first hour was the sense of isolation.
Yeah.
And when those other two people showed up, that kind of went away. So
Yeah.
I understand in terms
I
of
could see
plot,
that.
and I don't think it, you know, I'm not saying that part is bad. It's still good. But, and there was good stuff that happened in there, like, you know, the whole conversation they have that kind of involved God and stuff like that. Like, that was good, right?
Yeah.
But that first hour where he's alone, and one thing I noticed, there's, like, almost no music.
Yeah, there's the only additional sound you hear is his, like, the tapes he has of, like, news broadcasts and okay, his whole broadcast with the radio, like the framing of that, and whenever it was used, I was just like, because no one ever showed up.
Yeah, well, see, the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, okay, this is like kind of a use to get some exposition out of the way in a way that doesn't feel like exposition. So I was like, okay, but, you know, fine, whatever. But then they kept doing it.
Yeah.
And still
And
nothing
then
was changing, and I was like, oh, this is like, yeah.
you start to feel the hopelessness set in.
Because the, in terms of music, I think from what I looked on Wikipedia, and apparently there is a soundtrack of like more than 10 songs, but,
Not that I know.
I only remember 3 times there was music. The first time being when he first like stumbles upon the things, and there's like some
Yeah.
kind of action-y music for like not even like 10 seconds. It's not a long time either. The thing with the dog around the middle,
Yeah.
there's a little bit, and at the end. That's all
Oh,
I can
yeah.
remember, and maybe there was more, but still, like, that sense of isolation in the beginning with the lack of music, just him, and again, he is, sure, he's important in terms of trying to figure out the cure, and he has the tools to do that, but he's not, you know, he's not Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, going through busting everybody up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but, oh, and you mentioned early on that, like, the effects on, like, the creatures are not that good.
I think on the animals it was pretty weird, like the very, very beginning with
they definitely
the
kind of looked a little
animals.
uncanny and, like, inserted into the shot.
Yeah.
And again, the creatures are still kind of iffy. Like, you can kind of think, well, it was 2007, so it's not going to be amazing, but it's still, like, you feel like they could have maybe done a bit better, but so it's, you know, it's not like a deal breaker, but it's a little bit of something. But
Yeah.
just, like, the environment, though,
The environment was pretty well.
is
When I
really
saw
good.
the environment, I thought of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Because the graphics are very similar, and it's like the overgrown city where you have like the animals from the zoo wandering around, and I was like, oh, okay, so
Yeah,
it's
and
been quite a while.
right, and what's interesting is that, like, because a lot of these kinds of movies, they'd have it where it's like super dark, right? And
Yeah,
like
this
that, it's
one-
all like that's all like it's all.
Kind of like the last couple movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not just dark, but also like how it's shot and framed, and the design of things is like
Yeah.
it's supposed to look like creepy, right?
Yeah.
And this doesn't at all. If anything, it has this kind of weird, you know, beauty to it.
I think it's because overall, like, even though the tone is very, like, somber and it's, like, lonely, there is that little bit of hope that's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's represented by the fact that he's always, like, outside during the daytime because that's the only time he won't get attacked. So he's like, okay. So he's always hanging on to that hope that maybe someone will eventually hear his broadcast. And I mean, they do, but that's only after he loses everything that he had and he tries to kill himself.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's probably what it was. I'm like reading too much into it, but the way this movie is just shot and how it's produced and how it looks as just a piece of art is really well done.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely, this is like the if you just took a still of it, you can probably kind of tell what the tone would be, because you would see like the buildings and then you would see like the grass in the asphalt, but you would still see like the sun and like there would still be like shadows. I think that's like the movie poster.
Yeah, the
Where you get,
poster
like-
is like him walking through the city, but it's like most of the image is like the city, I think.
Yeah, and you get this sense of like dread, but you also get a sense of like there will maybe be a little bit of hope
Mm-hmm.
for a while. Oh, and then another part that I liked a lot was they show his day-to-day life, and he's like exercising and he's like watching TV even though it's all like recorded, and he's telling his dog to eat her vegetables. And,
Yeah.
Uh,
And what I also like is that the flashbacks, like,
oh yeah.
they're both, they're sudden, which you would think would be a bad thing, but it's not.
Yeah, at first I wasn't sure how I felt about them, but after the second flashback and then like seeing how they usually go in and out is really well done, and you can tell without him like saying it or having like a huge like mental breakdown that he he does have like some PTSD because he's still remembering this moment
Yeah.
very vividly, and it's haunting him, and it's probably another like shadow that's cast over him other than the fact that he's completely alone. He doesn't really know what he's doing in terms of like his goal right now, and then people aren't coming.
Yeah, and also what's nice is that they really don't tell you that much about the overall picture.
Yeah.
Right? They
don't.
it's usually just characters thinking about what, like, they think this is happening, and then
Yeah.
also just trying to figure out, like, right in the moment, kind of how these things interact. So, there's talks of like that there's some survivor colony, but it's like you really have no idea if there is one or not, right?
It's a big risk, and it was already a big risk for like that lady and the boy who were not actually related. They both came like for the radio broadcast, but sometimes like it could have been out of date, like he might not be alive anymore, it could have been a recording. They were taking a big risk because it's New York City and there are a lot of people and there are going to be a lot of monsters there. So I guess there is that like whole thing of like what kind of risk do you take in this kind of situation, and what counts as a risk, and then what's just survival at that point.
Yeah. I really didn't. I don't know. I just didn't expect to get so invested in like the emotion of the story, and yeah, I really, 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 really liked this a lot. But definitely, it's
not for everyone.
No, it's not a movie you watch and go, oh yay, I'm glad I saw that. It's not like that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a happy ending. Even it's still pretty somber, even though like
it kind of reminds me, like tonally, this reminds me probably the most of Man on Fire.
Maybe that's why
But
I like.
it's different in how it's presented for sure though, and
Yeah.
the plot's totally different. But in terms of that kind of somber tone throughout, and like the connection with the character, understanding his choices, even if they're not necessarily the best choices, that comes across really well. Yeah. Do you have anything else to say before spoilery stuff?
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about the ending.
Yeah, so the theatrical ending is the head creature thing, the leader or whatever, is trying to bust into the bunker where he is, and he gives his blood or whatever that he was using as like a cure because he's immune.
Right.
He gives it to the woman and the boy, and then he like pushes him down like I think it's in the Wikipedia said like a coal chute or something, so they get to run out and drive away. And then he, like, as the leader like busts down the door, he basically takes a grenade and like blows them up. And so what happens is then, so he's dead, but then the woman and the boy, they take the cure and they do drive to Vermont, and they do find a survivor colony.
And they hand off the cure.
Now here's the thing. The actual, like, sacrifice is not my biggest problem with that. My biggest problem is that they revealed that there is a colony.
Oh, I see.
I feel like part of the whole thing about it is that, again, you legitimately do not know. They never show you if there's a colony there.
Right.
And there's never this thing about, oh, there's a cure, like, because, again, the whole thing with the cure is that, like, it seemed like it was working, but at the same time, you weren't totally sure, and also, is the cure a good idea? That it gets into way more interesting questions, and it really gets to this kind of, again, like what you were saying with the Will Smith's like character's decisions and choices and like how he lives his life, because he's just so totally focused on this cure, right? That was this task he sort of
Yeah.
assigned himself. He's like, again, this is ground zero. I gotta clean this up, right?
Yeah.
And through that mentality, he got into this whole thing about, there's no higher brain functions. They can't plan for anything. And if you notice, even before the end, they're already kind of planning stuff.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing with the car when he's trying to kill himself. Like you'll notice they like strategically take him out.
Yeah.
So
And they also set up the trap for him, right?
yeah, well that's the hint kind of early on, but
Right.
yeah, the whole thing is that like yeah, so they're when they take out the car, like they do it actually in a pretty strategic way, and yeah, and then of course they reveal that they just wanted to get the woman creature out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it turns everything on his head because it's like, he was able to do what he was doing because he was able to put up this mental barrier where he was very clearly like, I'm a person, these are not people.
Yeah.
And because of that, he could, convince himself, like, doing these experiments on them was, was for the greater good, kind of, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to cure, the disease, but in doing so, of course, he ended up killing all of these creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So it flips it on its head when, you realize that they do have human elements to them.
They have more like intimate interactions than Will Smith had with the two other survivors, because it's like the leader creature got his wife creature back, and they acted kind of like a normal couple would if they got reunited after something terrible happened.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see that, and when you see Will Smith's face, it's just like, oh.
Because like then he had, it's clear that he had that moment where he realized that like he started thinking about it from their perspective.
Yeah,
right.
because...
That here's this dude, this thing that's not quite like them.
Yeah.
That as far as they know, he's the only one, right? So think about, there's this one thing out there that's kind of like you, but not really. And it's also like, kidnapping your people or killing them or all that kind of stuff. And like, you don't really know what's going on. And you've been trying to find this dude for a long time and you can't do it, and it's kind of similar to the whole, like, what, so many people like have a problem with like foreigners or refugees or stuff like that, where they dehumanize them,
right?
And they don't, it's kind of like, it's what I've said before, where people are always like, oh my god, terrorist bombing America is like absolutely possible. We're gonna go invade them. And it's like, look, okay, yeah, you're understandably upset, right, about like 9/11 and stuff, right? So, but we have used drones to bomb like thousands of times in the Middle East, and we've killed thousands of civilians. So think about it from their perspective. They see Americans bombing their friends. They would be just as pissed as you are. Right? And you could argue about who is in the right, but the emotion is there. Right?
Yeah.
So you can't, you can't just think me good, them bad. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. So
I guess, this movie is very good at portraying what humanity means on like two different levels, because you have humanity in the sense of communities, like socializing, what happens when one person is left alone for a long period of time and kind of like sees all this terrible shit happen, and like what happens to his humanity. But then you also see that whole thing where it's like you have two beings that are very similar, and they view the other creature as being not like them and kind of like hunting them and doing all of these terrible things. And then you kind of wonder, is there a right in that situation? Like, is Will Smith in the wrong? Are the creatures in the wrong?
Is
Are
there
they
even a wrong?
Is there a wrong? Are they
Yeah.
both just trying to survive? I feel like ultimately the thing is that they're just trying to survive, and they don't know how to coexist yet, and maybe they'll never know how to coexist. But I guess that goes back to the whole thing of hope, because in the end, I don't know if the creature understands him, but he says, "I'm sorry," and they leave.
Yeah.
They leave.
It goes also to like this sense of, like I think I'm not saying if this is the beginning of it, but one of the main portrayers of it, especially now, is I think this sense that like the whole Christian thing about like humans are created in God's image. It's like saying that like we humans are the superior thing, right?
Right.
And so again, that's connecting to here because he's saying like, oh, see, clearly I am a human. I do human things. These things are not human. They don't do human things, right? But if you think about it, again, let's assume that they do actually pretty much do all, again, they have the social structure of humanity there that just, of course, like, technologically and societally they don't have the same, but that's just because, they've kind of only lived for 3 years. So, that's excusable. But if you look at it from a pure like biological perspective, they are like they're in the better situation, right? Mostly, I mean, I guess they can't come out during the day, but
they're quicker.
I think
stronger.
physically they're just better, and then also there's a lot more of them, right?
Yeah.
So that's your advantage. So it kind of like gets to what I've like thought about, where what would be like the societal and specifically like philosophical ramifications if we like discovered a more advanced alien civilization.
Right.
Because doesn't that kind of throw the whole thing about like, well, if God made the universe and we're supposedly made in God's image, then why is this other thing better than us? Right. So that it's a similar conversation here you can get into. So yeah, I I did not expect this movie to quite go as far as it did, but I'm really glad it did.
Yeah.
So
so let's wrap up the year and bring Tara back.
Yes, hello.
There is the one thing that I was going to say that it's not probably going to tie into the movie just because I didn't watch it, that I was going to mention, just based off your conversation, is in another way, I guess in a different perspective, not really going off humanity per se, but I kind of thought of it as, you know how like a lot of people, their justification for hunting and everything for animals and everything is that they're kind of lesser and they don't have any physical bonds or anything. But then you hear of these stories about like these baby elephants, because elephants are very intelligent, and you hear about how their mothers like try finding them and everything, and how these baby elephants, they get taken to like away from their herds and everything, and they get traumatized and stuff. You hear about like, I think there was an article a couple weeks ago about how this mother whale like carried the carcass of her like baby for like 10 days or something too.
Yeah,
so,
and it gets into the whole thing about like animal testing.
Yeah.
Because like there's some people who just say like, no animal testing, like it's all cruel. But at the same time, like if we had no animal testing, our medical technology would be so much worse right now, right? But like there is some limit, right? For example, like doing tests on fruit flies is a lot easier to do, legally than test on a chimpanzee, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But the
yeah.
question is like, how do you actually like split that up, right?
Mhm.
How do you really? I mean, sure, I think we'd all agree that an elephant is smarter than a goldfish, but where's the line, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
its own kind of conversation. That, yeah. Anyway, 2007.
I cried twice this year. What the heck?
It's
Ratatouille, and then I Am Legend. I cried at the very end, and like in the middle of the review
honestly,
again.
well, in the very beginning, we were all pretty angry.
Yeah, okay, no, but like seriously, besides epic movie, like everything else was at least like decent.
Or enjoyable to some
Yeah.
extent,
Yeah.
to some weird extent.
Like literally, I'd say after epic movie, like the next worst was like probably Disturbia, and that really wasn't that bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like probably that along with Born Supremacy, and then like Goblet of Fire.
Yeah.
Harry Potter Goblet of Fire is in the bottom third of movies this year. And again, it's not that bad. It's just disappointing and meh,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, this is a really good year.
I think this is the best year we've had.
I think so.
Yeah, in terms of like consistency, we started off like pretty shit, but after that it went up pretty well.
Yeah, and
Especially
even the
considering
shit
the-
movies were at least entertaining, like Ghost Rider. So, you can't...
And considering the previous year too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was. Oh, man.
Yeah, 2006, like, again, while watching 2006, I kind of had that sense, like, oh, it's not that bad, but then comparing it now, like, yeah, 2006 fucking sucked compared to 2007. Yeah, like, again, epic movie's terrible. Ghost Rider was hilarious.
Yep.
300 was hilarious.
300 was extra as
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah.
Disturbia was meh.
Just
Meh.
weird.
At World's End was okay.
It was okay.
It had,
It was
yeah.
definitely the worst of the 3 movies that we've seen so far.
Yeah, the pirates.
But
Yeah.
it had a lot of world building and stuff.
It
which
had
we
good stuff in it,
appreciated.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as a film, it wasn't the best.
No, it's just kind of okay. Ratatouille was really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Born Supremacy was, again...
Meh.
Meh, yeah.
Ultimatum was better.
Ultimatum was
Yeah.
pretty good, though. And then Goblet of Fire was meh, but then Order of the Phoenix was pretty good, so again, kind of mirroring that.
What are the odds?
Yeah, and then Enchanted was good, and then...
We
this
liked
was-
it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Tara and I liked it.
I didn't say I didn't like it, it's just,
He wanted to watch 300.
Right afterwards, just
yeah.
immediate
Um,
testosterone boost.
Exactly. And then I Am Legend, which, yeah. I'm curious, like, how, because I Am Legend has a Metacritic of 65. Like, I'm curious if they actually saw, like, the director's cut, like, if that would have changed the rating by any decent amount.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm actually curious to see what people say and, like, what people would say are, like, negatives of the movie. But yeah, like, yeah, this year was really good. Because I think, at least for me, the year that I have rated the best right now is 2002.
I can't remember which one I have.
But 2002, like, had a couple movies that were bad. Like, Snow Dogs, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was pretty bad. Signs was just hilarious.
Fucking Signs.
Yeah, it's just fucking... And then Sweet Home Alabama was garbage. So... Yeah.
This is definitely better than... Because this year was just one just really horrible movie.
Yeah.
And then like a bit of okay movies, and the rest were like good to
Really good.
really good.
Yeah. And again, epic movie, like... it wasn't like
It's not bottom of the barrel.
no, it's tier 2.
It's really terrible, but we have seen worse.
Yes.
Yep.
Which
Just
is
like
sad.
Yeah.
the movie that we shall not name.
Yeah. Like, I don't even think epic movies in my bottom 10.
I have no idea where I put it.
I don't remember. But, yeah. So, yeah, 2007. Good. I mean, then again, we did also not... Two of the movies we saw... Well, no. Actually, the two movies that were not from 2007 were some of the lesser films that we watched, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's
you can't
true.
even make that excuse. So...
His Born Supremacy and Goblet of Fire were not from this year.
Yeah.
Order of the Phoenix, we just had to move a couple of months.
Yeah. But,
It still counts as a positive towards this year.
yeah, definitely. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, damn, like, what's gonna be better than this, actually? Because I feel like I mean, there's a couple years coming up where there's nothing that really looks bad in it, but at the same time, there looks like there's a couple things that are just... Like, there's more meh stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I don't know, like... If this was, like, the best year we saw, like, I'd be happy with that, honestly. So... Yep, well, 2008 has...
Oh,
2008 is
man.
all over the place. There's
Oh man.
It looks like there's gonna be a lot of kingdoms and emperors and kung
And-
fu and then the heist and
A weird
Blitz.
sequel
oh, God.
yep.
that I never thought I
Then
would
we
see.
get and then we get a random flashback to high school.
Yeah, there's several movies here that are like very well known for being very good.
Yeah.
There
Then
are
we have
several
some
others
that
that are known for being not good.
No.
And there's a few that we don't know anything about.
no.
And then there's one that I've seen, but it was a while ago, and I'm very curious to see what you two think about it.
I
Okay.
remember reading the summary of it a very long time ago. So
It's also one of those where like just reading the plot summary like doesn't
yeah.
really do it. So because I
guess
am very not sure how to think about it from what I remember. So I'm very curious to see it again. But
Mm.
yeah, so 2008 at least has stuff to look forward to, but it also has stuff that I don't want to see.
Eh.
Okay, I don't think anything is nothing on this looks like
Not as bad as Epic Movie.
yeah, nothing. I mean,
No.
there could, even the stuff that I don't want to see, it's more for like cringe than actual
Like
terribleness.
like it'll actually make you angry at it.
Yeah, I think. I mean, who knows?
I guess we'll see.
We will. But yeah,
We're
so
going to start the next year with another movie that I'm not looking forward to.
I kind
But
of.
Fallon is very excited for.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say any more about it, but yeah. So we'll see you back for that.
Bye.
Bye.